the Jets. They have gone through yet another coach. So what year were you born?
1982.
1982. All right. That was the last year of Walt Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
Walt Michaels, Joe Walton, Bruce Coslet. We're going to go through all the Jets coaches, but Robert Saleh gets fired after 5 games, which was something that probably should have happened in January or February, would have been my guess. I know you were a little more of a pro Saleh side, but if you're going to do this when Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll and all these other guys are available. Sean, I think you said this. You were the most pessimistic Jets fan I knew, other than Larry David, who actually quit the Jets, doesn't root for them anymore. Why now? Why not 8 months ago? What's your take?
Well, let me just say, as always, I follow in Larry David's footsteps. So wherever he goes, I go. I've been tracing his career for 4 decades, and I'm proud to follow along with him. I just was not sold on the infrastructure of the team. My bigger concern was more that they had not replenished their defensive line and that Nathaniel Hackett was calling offensive plays for the team.
Yeah.
Both of those things have been problematic at times. I think Robert Saleh got scapegoated here in a big way, to be honest with you.
Wow,
I don't think he was
scapegoat defense.
I don't think he was the greatest coach in team history, but he won 7 games in 2 consecutive seasons with Zach Wilson as his primary quarterback, and Zach Wilson stinks. So are we sure Robert Saleh was the problem with this team? Are we sure?
Well, he was by metrics the most successful Jets coach of the last 10 years.
What was he, 20 and 46?
20 and 36.
20 and 36.
Schrager has a lot of info.
Yeah, I'll empty
empty
the bag. Is that what they say?
You don't have to give us like 12 minutes, but you can give us like a good 3.
Okay. So it's always been an interesting dynamic between Robert Saleh and Ambassador Woody Johnson. That was in the press release, Ambassador Woody Johnson.
Forgot.
It's always been an interesting dynamic because Christopher, who's the younger brother by about 15 years, he's the one who hired Robert Saleh, and he did so when Ambassador Johnson was over in London serving under President Trump. So he comes back.
But Saleh was a hot hire, right?
Oh, yeah. No, look, Saleh had...
Sean was like semi-excited.
Well,
sure. I saw him running up and down the sideline in San Francisco. He seemed very cool.
Detroit native, and they went with Dan Campbell instead. He interviewed with Philly, and they ended up hiring Nick Sirianni instead. It was that year where it was like, okay, is it Mike McDaniel? And they ended up hiring Robert Saleh. Jets fans were fine with it. Woody comes back, and it's this pressure of like, okay, we've got to perform. Now, Rodgers, they all go out to Malibu last year, the whole crew. They all pitch Rodgers. They get Rodgers in the house, and then Rodgers goes down. So it's like almost like a mulligan. This year, there was so much optimism after the Thursday night win against New England. I was in the building. I'm on the sidelines for the game. Rodgers is in a great mood. Saleh's in a great mood. And no less than 2 weeks later, one of them's out of a job completely. And I will tell you, there was so much frustration after the Denver loss. And then to lose the way they did in London. And Rodgers is like taking blame. And I understand that he threw 3 interceptions, but to fall in that hole early and to not be able to bring it in that first half and to, again, fall behind early, that was a great frustration of ownership. So here's the timeline. Monday, they all get in there and, like, there's a tension after this flight that, like, something's going to go down. Like, they all know something's going to go down.
Oh, so it's like a grim, what is that, 6-hour flight?
Yeah, it's about an 8-hour flight.
But like an hour and a half to get to the airport.
And you got to get your
New York
bags.
to London's not easy. Yeah.
And then
so everybody's pissed.
Monday morning, you walk in, and from what I gather, it was like you could hear a pin drop, like, what's going to go down? What's going to go down? They ended up like, all right, let's...
So people think it's going to be Hackett.
Yes, something
Hackett
major.
will be the scapegoat.
Something major's happening.
Breece Hall's career is over.
Everyone's
Garrett
looking
Wilson
over their
had
shoulder.
22 targets for 80 yards.
Everyone's looking over their shoulders, and they start game planning, and it's like, okay, is nothing going to happen? So then Saleh decides, and I don't know if this is breaking news, and we could put it on your, but like, there was a conversation with Hackett that moving forward, Todd Downing is going to be calling the plays.
So he tells Hackett that on Monday.
Hackett was made aware that this was going to go down and that this is the conversation.
Plot thickens.
And Hackett says to him, dude, all good. Like, all good. I'm hurt. I'm hard. Like, it sucks that this went down this way, but like, whatever it takes for the team to get out of this rut, like, we're in this together. He's not losing his job. He's like, I'm all right. Like, let's do this. There were conversations Wednesday. They leave the building. Monday night. Now, Rodgers said on McAfee, he spoke to Johnson, but it was more about like his ankle and all that stuff. I'm sure they talked about the team, but I will tell you, there was no code red. And as juicy as that is, that like Rodgers like on the phone with the owner.
So he talked to the owner on Monday night after it was decided that his handpicked guy, Nathaniel Hackett, would no longer be calling the plays.
Yes, or at least for this week.
Okay,
Was not gonna...
nothing to see there.
Thank you for
Sure.
expressing some concern about that fact, Bill. I appreciate it. We
Yeah.
are dubious in Jets Nation, Peter, I will say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Tuesday morning, Saleh comes in. He's told, just come and sit down. And Joe Douglas isn't the one calling him in. It's both Johnson brothers and maybe a couple other people on the highest of levels. And it literally took 10 minutes, maybe even less. And it was, thanks for your service here. We need a spark. We don't like the way the team's playing. You're done. And there will be no contract extension, which was the hope that if they'd won, he would get a contract extension going into this year. And you are no longer the head coach. And Jeff Ulbrich, who ironically also is a defensive coach, is going to take over. And the reason that was given to Saleh and the reason that's been said publicly, they just needed a spark. And that Ulbrich is one of these rally around the guys, galvanize, whole thing. So Ulbrich talks to Hackett on Tuesday. He's like, look, this all just fell in my lap. Like, I didn't expect this to happen either. No one was manipulating this behind the scenes. I think we're going to go with Todd, as was the plan, to call plays. Hackett again, and it sounds like he's some noble guy. And I know the memes are hilarious of him as like the Office Space dude or whatever it is. Like, what does he do as the offensive coordinator who's not calling plays? But Hackett's just like, whatever you guys need, I'm here. Let's.
He's now like an offensive designer. Like he designs the plays, he just doesn't call them. He's like, hey, I've designed a run sweep.
Suggestions welcome, right? So,
hey, I was thinking about wide receiver passes. I laid out a couple options.
That's it. So Hackett, who's been the ire of Jets fans for multiple years, takes a backseat. Todd Downing is inserted. Now, Downing was an OC in Tennessee. He made a major mistake, lost his job in Tennessee.
What was his major mistake?
He had a DUI after
that kind of
the
major
flight.
mistake.
They
I
came
thought
back.
you were going to say he like ran Derrick Henry 48 times or something.
But he paid, he paid for that, and he has been very open and apologetic about that situation. And he's now the offensive coordinator. And
can
what's
we go
amazing,
backwards, or do you have more?
I just really quickly and I would love Sean's thoughts. Like, it went from after the Denver game, everyone wanted Hackett fired. Hackett and Saleh. Saleh actually gets fired, and fans are like, what a circus! The Mets suck! The Jets suck! We're such a circus! And then now, like 48 hours later, I talk to Jets fans. They're like, all right, we made the changes. I like this Ulbrich. He's kind of cool. Okay, new play caller. All right, and Rodgers' ankle is actually better than we thought. All right, and if we win on Monday, we're 3-3. Like, they're optimistic again. Like, it's totally
half
tilted.
full.
Yeah, I think it's half full, and it's like there were necessary changes made, whether or not we love Saleh or we don't. But like the Rodgers piece, I'm told he was as shocked as anyone. I know that's going to be read with rolled eyes, and maybe I'm carrying water if you think. From what I know, from my reporting, everyone was knocked on their ass by this, and a lot of the players were actually very upset that Saleh was let go.
You want the floor, Sean?
Well, I'll just say, I think, honestly, this just seemed like it happened 1 week earlier than expected. Most people who follow the team closely felt like if they lost against Buffalo with this opportunity to move into first place despite these two sad experiences in another national game for the team, if Saleh is on the sideline once again, crossing his arms, staring into the black abyss of nothingness, and got fired, no one would be surprised. It just felt 1 week early. He's not been successful as a head coach. He seems like a wonderful guy, and you hear that all around. Same is true for your boy Nat Hackett. He seems like a nice guy. I got nothing against him personally. But both he and his father have been terrible play callers for the New York Jets in my lifetime. And it's been very painful to deal with that. I'm glad Hackett is not calling plays. I feel bad for Saleh, but he had a long stretch of time here to turn it around, and he was not able to do it. I think what you said is right, Peter, which is that honestly, if they win and Ulbrich fires them up, and we've seen the new coach bump, Antonio Pierce is coaching on a new contract because of the new coach bump, then that would be fantastic. They have a good enough roster to be a playoff team. Everybody knows it. And
that's going to crush Saleh. Like, I know the guy. Like, he is fully convinced that this team is a playoff team and can still do it. And who cares about Saleh? I understand. Like, we move on in this world. But, like, I think they're going to win Monday night against the Bills. They're going to be 3-3. They play the fourth easiest schedule from here on out. 10 of their games are on the Eastern Seaboard moving forward. In their first 4 games, the schedule was insane.
It was.
They started off Monday night, then had a short week playing in Tennessee.
They had 3 and 11 days, right?
Yeah.
And then that Denver game
and then
was
London.
a horrible weather game.
And then
they went to London.
And, the offense... Rodgers,
but the big question for me is, like, Breece Hall and Wilson were considered 2 of the biggest fantasy assets heading into the season, especially Breece Hall, who's just a complete zero. Like that alone, it's like somebody's got to pay. Like, the backup was playing more than Breece Hall was. I say this as somebody who has Breece Hall, I think, on two of my 3 teams.
Yeah.
It's painful. It hurt my feelings.
Well, a lot of people thought that Braylon Allen should have gotten more touches 2 weeks ago, and then he got more touches last week, and I wouldn't say it was significantly better than Breece. The issue is an offensive line issue. They haven't, I don't know what it is, but the scheming in the run game is weak right now, predictable. I thought Dan Orlovsky did a really nice job identifying some of the issues on 4th down on Twitter this week. The play calling's been bad. It's been really bad. Will a new play caller just make Breece look better? I don't know. Maybe he will.
You get Morgan Moses back, who was really good those first few weeks, and they were worried at the Patriots game they lost him. And then he and Vera Tucker are two of the best at what they do. And the thought is maybe we can get the run game kickstarted again behind them. But all the Jets fans are accurate in that this has been a great disappointment through 5 games. I had them as the number 1 seed in the AFC.
You had Rodgers
and Rodgers is my MVP based on being there this summer and doing a preseason game. And
this goes back to our discussion before week 1 when we were like, is being there good or bad?
100%. 100%. I can't watch the scheme in the rain and against Denver when it's August on a beautiful day.
Can't see them trying to stop Bo Nix. So Saleh went 20-36. He was 22-34 against the spread, which I thought was incredible. Sean, I'm a results guy. I look at Adam Driver's last 6 movies.
How dare you?
Last Duel.
Brooklyn guy, Sean.
House of Gucci. White Noise.
Yep.
65. Ferrari. Megalopolis.
Say that again.
Megalopolis?
God, I love the word. The trailer was great.
Sean, is he the Robert Saleh of A-list actors? What
was Saleh have a girls?
I like 4 of those 6 movies, to be perfectly honest with you.
Which
I think they're bold choices in his career, and I admire Adam Driver. Adam Driver is an artist. Robert Saleh is a coach. He's a manager, and we need results as managers. I'm a manager, Bill. You know that. But Adam Driver, he does something a little bit different, and I will not have you compare him. Ferrari's good.
Is it on the planes? Yeah, I was thinking that's a perfect plane movie. Like
it's a perfect plane movie if you want to sleep on a cross-country flight.
Peter,
it's so slow.
Please support the cinemas. Go to the theater. I'm begging
100%. I will. I want to see the Pharrell Williams Lego movie in the theater with my kid. I will see
piece
that.
by piece.
Good.
That's this week.
Yes, I will see that.
Peter, do you believe in the new coach theory?
I do. I think in the NFL there is a definite bump. The question is, can you sustain it over this length of time? What's interesting is no coach has been fired this early in the season since Matt Rule was, and Steve Wilkes in 2022 filled in, and they went 500 the rest of the way. But I think if you hire a coach with 4 weeks left in the season, they can often go 3-1 and finish the season. They still have so much football left to play, and you had all summer of Robert Saleh installing things. Can Ulbrich just come in and fire up the guys? I've known Jeff for a while. He is a fiery coach. He is everything you thought Saleh was going to be when he was running up and down the sidelines at San Francisco. That's this guy in the building. Does that translate as the head coach over the course of 3 months? We'll have to see.
I had the data, and I think I accidentally deleted it from my iPad. So that's just an old guy moment for me. But Jeff Saturday, that was the most famous one. New coach. I mean, that was his only good one. But last year we had Brandon Staley got fired. New guy came in for the Chargers, and they, I think, were plus 12.
Okay.
Against, maybe it was the Bills, and they ended up losing by 2.
They were down about 56-0 against the Raiders.
Carolina, they covered the first week.
Yep.
So anyway, in my research, it was the last 4
have all covered the spread.
Covered or won. Antonio Pierce was another one.
Yep.
The last one that didn't was when Matt Rule got fired after week 5.
So it's Wilkes.
The week 6 game,
the Rams
they lost.
Yeah.
But then they got better with Wilkes
they went 500
as the year went along. So there's some new coach blood. I've always believed this, but I could see the Jets are getting 2.5 against Buffalo. That, spoiler alert, is going to be $1 million pick for me because that just seems like a classic. We've responded. Oh my God, Breece Hall had 20 carries for 138 yards.
No doubt.
And it's just because we fired the coach.
I'll go to this game
and
I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll go to this game and I will tell you that if they hadn't fired Saleh or demoted Hackett, and Sean, you know this, the second there was a 3-and-out, it would be boo birds. I think the vibe has changed. It's all right, they made the changes. Now let's root for the team. I think that's how Jets fans feel going into this weekend.
But Sean, you were the most down on the team of anyone I knew.
Well,
you even have a tweet that you happily reposted. You're a reposter if you're right about something.
I am.
You were super skeptical. You didn't understand. I had the Jets winning the division. He had
So did
Rodgers
I.
MVP, and you were completely out. So what's changed?
Well, Aaron
The
Rodgers
Mets have changed. Maybe it's optimism. The Mets is spilling over.
I'm not optimistic about the season. I mean, I think they have the talent on the roster to be a playoff team. I think they've put themselves now in a very difficult position by being under 500. And losing, in particular, the Broncos game, I think is going to come back to haunt them in a big way. That's not a game you want to lose, and it's not a game that they should have lost. So that feels terrible.
You mean when they made history by losing a game where the other QB threw for less yards in any win than Eli Manning in 2007? That was incredible.
If Zerline makes that field goal, they win.
That's the thing. If Zerline makes the field goal, Saleh probably has a job.
Here's the other thing about the firing Saleh that is interesting is the Jets' defense has given up 2 touchdowns total in the last 3 games.
Right.
They're still doing what they always do. They bend sometimes, but they never broke under Saleh. And that's why I say I think he was scapegoated here. Now, obviously, Ulbricht is the person calling the plays for the defense. But man, they put together a good unit. They developed a lot of good players. Quincy Williams is like a top 10 linebacker in the NFL now. He was a cast-off at the beginning of their administration. He's a really good defensive coach. So we will see what happens. I'm skeptical because I think there were a couple choices that they had to make to bring in Hassan Reddick that just totally backfired on them. And I feel like they're very weak.
Johnson made a plea on the conference call. He's like, please, Hassan, the owner, come. Doors are open. Let's talk. Let's just get here. Hassan Reddick's like, yeah, pay me more.
If Reddick signs, it's a different thing to me. If Reddick signs, I think they're actually a different team. I think they're a much scarier team.
A lot of Jets fans are looking back in hindsight and saying, we drafted a 6th offensive lineman in Olu at Penn State when Brock Bowers was on the board. Where do you stand on that? Would you have wanted Bowers or the offensive line? Because everyone says, well, the offensive line sucks. They got an offensive lineman, but he's kind of a swing tackle in his rookie year.
Yeah. Tyron Smith looks a little old right now, so I don't feel so bad about that pick. If Olu is going to be the long-term left tackle, I feel okay with it. He's a rookie. What can you expect? He got thrown into this. I don't feel too bad about that. Brock Bowers does look nasty, and I've got him on 2 fantasy teams.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Jets defense, 1st in yards per play, 2nd against the pass, 7th on first downs, 5th scoring, 6th red zone. Like, they've been really good.
They've been great for years.
And that's kind of Saleh's calling card was the defense was always good and always overachieving, but nothing else seemed to work.
But he's not the defensive coordinator. He's the head coach. Someone needed to take the fall. Unfortunately, he's the one whose blood is shed.
But here's the thing. If that stupid running into the kicker thing didn't get called when it was 17-0, Rodgers is limping toward the blue 10. It looks like Rodgers was like, I think I'm out. I'll see you guys back in America. And then all of a sudden they had a first down. He's like, I'm back in. And he's running back in. I'll say this about Rodgers. I'm happy to go on the record. There's no way they didn't tell him what was happening with the coach.
There's a lot of few good men.
I am so tired of
parallels here.
Kyle, turn the camera on. That's
Lieutenant
directly pointing
Weinberg.
at me. When the star of the team always knows what's going on, period, end of story. I don't care if it's bad, like Giannis. Oh my God, I had no idea the Drew Holiday trade was happening. I just don't believe it ever because you'd have to be a fucking idiot if you own a sports team and you're paying somebody 50, 55 million, or in Rodgers' case, you built this whole team around him and you're just not going to tell him you fired somebody? That's insane.
I disagree.
Nobody would do that.
I disagree. I think they honestly had a conversation. They slept on it overnight and the owner's like, I'm not going to put this on Rodgers. That's his, he and Saleh have a good relationship. All that stuff. There's so many interpersonal relationships. I think Woody Johnson is a 77-year-old owner who's like, I don't want to watch this anymore. I need a spark. I'm making a move.
Counter. What's the upside? What else are you going to say? We talked to Aaron. He knew. Like, you can't. You're just going to fall on the sword every time for the star. That's what the NBA teams, this has been like, you think about people like LeBron. Like, you think for the last 15 years of his career, they weren't running every move by LeBron? It's like, yeah, we got to trade Russell Westbrook. Let's not tell LeBron. Like, they're fucking telling him.
I mean, the irony of all of this, and Bill, I tend to lean more in your direction on this one, is that Aaron Rodgers wasn't good on Sunday. I don't know if he was exactly the reason that they lost, but he had never thrown 2 picks in the first quarter of a game in his entire career. One of the reasons why they fell behind so badly is because they were turning the ball over. In the fourth quarter, if he hits that throw to Garrett Wilson along the sideline, they're walking off and winning that game.
Or Mike Williams won the next time where he threw the pick.
Yeah, and he's not moving the same either.
He hurt his
he's
ankle
taking hits.
significantly. Like he was banged up, and I think
Yeah.
the Jets fans are surprised he's actually as good as he is right now. But I hear you guys. I'm not dumb. Like I know how any company works, and they all flew out to Malibu and sat in his house and begged him to come there and explain.
Yeah.
Like I get it. I'm not dumb.
At some point, you reach the consultancy stage of stardom with a team, and I think he's there. Would be my guess. But like, Mahomes is like, if the Chiefs did anything and Mahomes like, yeah, I had no idea. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just never believing that. There's no way they're not running stuff. Yeah, we traded Travis Kelce.
You're putting me in a tough spot because I sound idiotic saying that he didn't. But I think there is a reality where they talked about, just the game, whatever. And then Woody says on his own, you know what? Like, Rodgers doesn't seem thrilled. We're not thrilled watching this. I need to make a change.
He at least asked him, like, whether he told him he was doing that.
That's a tough spot to put on Rodgers, I think.
Yeah, like, how's the coaching
I think
been?
that's
What do you think?
I don't think the owners, I don't think they would put that on him in that responsibility.
Well,
I don't think they want him to put him in that
putting
position.
anything past Woody Johnson? The guy's a maniac.
But okay.
like, you think he's rational?
In sort of in Peter's defense for what he's saying, I think what is happening right now is obviously Johnson, when he was the ambassador of the UK, was away from the team for a few years, and things really went downhill when he was away from the team. And
As opposed when he was really involved, it was going so great.
It wasn't. But there was a time when he was the owner in the Rex period where things looked good, and it seemed like that was going to be a good ownership group. And they are now mired in the longest playoff drought in
13
North American
years. They have not been to
history.
the playoffs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's a case to be made that Woody is like, I got legacy stuff on the line here. Like, aside from my family business, this is something I will be remembered for if I turn out to be a world-class bad sports owner in New York. That's not something you want to be. So he's
James Dolan's like, hold my beer.
But look, that's another team where a guy backed away, and all of a sudden they're a very interesting proposition in the city. And also, honestly, the Mets and the Yankees and the Knicks all being exciting and the Jets being a tire fire is terrible. And that's something you feel when you live in New York.
Point.
So I wonder if some of that is contributing to him. He's never fired a coach this early into the season like this. This is something he's never done before. So I'm sure he's feeling
a rare thing in general in the
it
NFL.
Is,
it's like
it
once a year, maybe.
And I honestly think the fact that he did not hire Robert Saleh, it's like, this is not my handpicked guy. This team is built to win right now with this quarterback right now. If this can salvage the season, this is my sign to the fans that I'm actually doubling down on this team and saying, I know we're not winning a Super Bowl as it is right now. I know we're not winning Super Bowl with Saleh as our head coach. I am going to do this.
That in January.
I'm going to do this, and I will create this, atmosphere that, okay, same old Jets, we're idiots. But if that's what it takes to salvage this thing, I don't just want to watch the season go down the tubes with a guy that I didn't pick that I don't think is going to win us a Super Bowl.
So explain to me, Pro Football, why they couldn't just get Mike Vrabel 10 hours after they fire Saleh.
You can. Vrabel's under contract.
People are like, oh, it's so hard for a coach to come in.
So
during this I'm like, is it? Is it
that
hard?
I actually had conversations about this because I didn't think Vrabel. I thought Belichick. Like, is it possible? Now,
he hates the Jets.
He hates the Jets.
Never do
I don't think he'll ever do it. I was just thinking hypothetically.
Yeah.
And the only situation that's been done off the couch, not a coach, not with the team, midseason was Saturday. And that was because that's Irsay's guy. And he did it. But Saturday was on ESPN. He's like, midway through the season, having never coached before in the NFL.
And then I bet against him and he won.
They beat the Raiders.
Yeah.
They beat the Raiders.
Terrible loss.
It's still crazy that they did that. Then I was thinking, well, I'm watching Belichick. He's following the game as close as anybody. And the Jets, he despises the Jets and doesn't like the Johnson family. And so he wouldn't go there. But hypothetically, if another coach was fired mid-season, could a Belichick come over? Now, Vrabel's
like
consulting.
A Pete Carroll.
Yeah,
just come in and have a lot of energy.
Another coach with a lot of Jets history.
Yeah,
Pete Carroll, sure.
Fired after a year.
They could technically they could. It's just you don't know those coaches. You don't know that offense. You don't know that defense. It would be more than anything just a rah-rah guy usually, and just, hey, I'm here to change.
I would have gotten Vrabel 5 minutes later. I think that guy's like a top 7.
And he would have to. I mean, obviously
figure it out.
Tennessee's paying him a ton already. Cleveland has him on staff. I'm sure Cleveland would let him leave to go be a head
I guess
coach.
the tough thing would be taking over another coaching staff because I know Doc even talked about that publicly. You're inheriting all these people, and it turns into Game of Thrones with all the assistants. Quickly, Jets are plus 310 on FanDuel to win the division right now. The alt win total for the Jets on FanDuel is over 9.5 is plus 235. and then 8.5 is the over.
Do you have
Do the Jets go 9-8?
I think that they can. I don't know if they will. I will say historically, this division is usually a bloodbath, and the Jets are typically at the bottom. So if we're in a year where the Jets are like a 9, 10,
Yeah, but think
even
the Pats
8-win
are
team,
awful, and Miami's awful.
Exactly. That's
And
my
Buffalo's
point. Is that,
lost
You haven't
2
even
games.
played the Pats yet.
yes, and the Bills have
I don't
looked
know how
terrible.
They
they
beat the
don't get
Pats.
to
They
that
beat the
game.
Pats week 3.
Oh, yeah. No, have they played the Dolphins?
They have
No,
not played the
yet.
Dolphins.
That's what it is. Yeah, they have 3 games left against those 2. Yeah, they're plus 110 over 8.5.
Which is more of a reason I think that there was an urgency to get this done.
All right, so the Jets have been in my life really since I started watching football with Jim Plunkett, 1974. I was a little kid pretending I was Randy Bataha in the backyard. And then the Pats were good in 76, 77, 78. And the Jets were kind of parallel. They actually had a couple good moments too. And then we kind of both settled into just being the black sheeps of the AFC simultaneously. But I can start to really remember football around the mid-70s. Lou Holtz was the Jets coach in 76. Coached 13 games and then got fired or quit, 3-10. But then they brought in Walt Michaels. And Walt Michaels presided over, I think, the 82 Jets, which made they lost to Miami, 14-0. So I started researching this. Walt Michaels, that was his last game. They lost the AFC title game 14-0. And this is in the research. The day after that game, Michaels did not show up for the Jets' final team meeting. 17 days later, he retired saying he needed a break. The New York Times reported that during Michaels' last meeting with Leon Hess, the Jets owner, he was told to resign, given a $400,000 financial package, and encouraged to seek treatment for alcohol abuse. He accepted the terms and then coached in the USFL 3 years later, and that was it. He was replaced by the one and only Joe Walton.
Joe Walton, I was going to say.
So my high school buddy, Jim Grady, diehard Jets fan.
Okay.
And we got to know each other in the mid-'80s. And Joe Walton was our favorite because the camera would always catch him picking his nose on the sidelines.
This is the insight you come for.
He would just be like, kind of like one knuckle deep every time they showed him. But we thought it was the funniest thing. There
were some good Jets years. I mean,
there was. They had
that
the
Richard
sack
Todd year,
exchange.
the sack exchange, and then Kenny O'Brien had some years where they would actually win games.
He did.
They were favored in the Pats playoff game when the Pats won the Super Bowl. Anyway, he lasted through the 80s. I looked up his New York Times obit, and the headline of it was Joe Walton, Giant star who found futility as Jets coach, dies at 85. That was the headline.
That's some dig. The headline of an obituary.
Futility. The guy's dead.
Give him a little bit of flowers here.
So then next was the immortal Bruce Coslett. Is that the first coach you remember or no?
It is. I was telling you earlier, Bill, that one of my first sports memories, probably my first football memory, because I was a baseball fan and I remember the Mets being good in 88. But in 90, when Coslett came in, my father despised Bruce Coslett. Bruce Coslett, who he coached.
Bowl haircut and really goofy
starter
glasses.
Starter jacket. I remember.
He looked
that
like
weird,
an SNL character.
That like orangey hair color. He was a very stoic figure, but he coached 8 NFL seasons in full and never had a winning season. So he was kind of Robert Saleh before Robert Saleh. He was a wildly unsuccessful.
Because was it Bengals first and then Jets?
It was Jets then Bengals.
Jets then Bengals.
Yeah,
I remember him as both. Yeah,
no winning seasons for the Jets. Replaced by Pete Carroll.
Yep, 1 year.
1 year and done. And then I forgot because I was researching this. It was the fake spike.
No, it was 94. It was the famous year.
They're like 6-5. I watched that game when it happened. Marino does the fake spike.
I was there.
Oh, you went?
I was there with my friend Matt Nay, my friend Josh Levin. We all went, and they were like 6-4 maybe at the time.
6-5.
6-5. They were hot, and then they lost every game the rest of the season.
Yeah, and it was like I guess he had to go.
And that was Mark Ingram's dad. Mark Ingram had 4 touchdowns that game, or 3 touchdowns for the Dolphins.
So they bring in Rich Kotite
from the Eagles,
who was 4-28 in 2 years.
It's unbelievable.
And then there's a whole I didn't get fired, I quit. Yep. And he was like, well, we were about to fire you and you quit. That was when they got Neil O'Donnell. This is my favorite version of the Jets. They signed Neil O'Donnell from the Steelers, and he had the press conference. And I was living with my buddy Jeff Gall at the time, and Neil
Vikings
came in.
Fan.
Yeah.
I'm a listener.
Neil came in. He's like, I was brought here to win games. He talked like Francesa. I'm a winner. The Jets are winners. And we were like, this is amazing. The Jets definitely aren't winners. And he was terrible. Replaced by Bill Parcells. That was fun.
Great little run.
It was a great
That's
time.
the best Jets coach you ever had, right?
By far.
3 years of Bill Parcells.
And Belichick on staff.
Well, there's a very
Belichick on
painful,
staff.
painful Testaverde injury that colors this period.
Yeah, week
because
one.
otherwise, this could have
Yeah.
been a great team.
Yep.
You know, I think I bet on them in the AFC title game.
Against the Broncos. They were up 10-0 in that game.
At halftime, it felt like they were going to win.
They were up.
And
Keith
then
Byers.
a bunch of weird shit happened. All right, so replaced by Al Groh,
Brief,
who
right?
went 9-7 and then resigned
And
to coach
resigned.
the University of Virginia.
Went to college.
Really
So
weird.
Al Groh, during this season, bear in mind I'm a diehard Jets fan in college or in high school at this time. One of my close friends in high school starts dating Al Groh's son the year he starts as the coach.
Wow.
And when I met his son, who was a really nice guy, I was like, brother, there's a lot riding on this hire. Your dad better not fuck this up. And he bailed in like 12 weeks.
He did.
And went back and went to UVA.
You know, I knew his brother, Wayne Groh, who he was working with a crew and things went wrong. And
We should have known
he ended
Al
up getting
Groh
shot in a
wasn't to be
hotel room. So then there was the Belichick never actually hired.
Crazy.
Herm Edwards.
Yeah. Good years.
So
First
I'm
year
writing
was
my
good.
column at that point, and people like Herm Edwards
Just
are
content,
just gold
filler.
mines.
Yeah,
just one of the worst game management people who ever lived. Just seemed completely confused. Like if they had all the stuff they had now of the analytics, whether you should punt or got Herm Edwards would have like broken the nerds. He would like punt from the 34-yard line. So
First year though of Herm, did they not go to the playoffs?
I think they might have.
A nice
But then
bump.
he jumped to Kansas City.
Well, he went like 4-12.
Yeah, and they
then
were going to
goes
fire him. He
yeah.
jumped to Kansas City, so he's gone. And you hire the man genius. You hire Belichick's protege, whose really only legacy was he starts Spygate, blows the whistle on Belichick, starts this Belichick blood feud that now is paying off against you because Belichick probably would have taken over the Jets if that never happened. But Sean hates Belichick, so he's fine.
Yeah, Belichick's like 300 years old. It's all right.
Okay.
Mangini, I remember being really happy during that period, and I feel like he got kind of short shrift. And I don't really fully understand
there were
what
some good
happened there.
moments. And then of course the brush off of the handshake with Belichick is like legendary. And then I know this sounds so ringer and but like the Sopranos scene was a huge deal.
It was a huge deal.
When Artie Bucco's like the man genius, and they entered and it was like crossover event. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And everyone wasn't like, oh, we hate that coach. They're like, we love that guy. After 1 year, he was awesome with the Jets. And then as it goes.
So he never worked again.
No, he went to Cleveland. He was the head coach with the Browns.
Oh,
after.
that's right. I had him on the podcast, and I was still kind of pissed about Spygate. We talked it out. I was about as I'm never adversarial when I have a podcast guest. That one, I was like, I had to.
Yeah, and how did he handle it?
It was good. He actually was a
Does he
pretty
talk
good
about
guest.
it openly? Because I know he's on FS1 a bunch. I see him on the
That
First
was
Things
10
First.
years ago.
But he still
I can't
does he
remember
talk
what
about it?
I think we talked about it a
Yeah,
little bit.
okay.
Bill, wait, I have a question for you. Have you reconciled the fact that your 6 Super Bowl rings are built on a pile of lies and that you cheated
You know
your way
what?
to the
They
top?
changed the rules in 07 and Belichick forgot. And it was just one game of cheating. And, we paid the price. First round pick.
What about
Never
the air
first round
pressure in
pick.
those balls? Was that an issue? I seem to recall there was another controversy.
That all the evidence is that they were full shit on that one. Anyway.
Okay.
I have a question. Sean, I know you're the movie guy, but I'm sure you've seen the clips. And Bill, of course, any thoughts on the clips that have gone viral from the Aaron Hernandez television show of some of these acting bits of the
Are those
Gronk
real?
guy? They're real.
It's real.
So Ryan Murphy's just never seen a football game before?
It doesn't appear to be the case. He seems to be really comfortable with serial murderers and portraying them.
Yeah.
Dahmer, he's on.
For whatever reason, football players not working.
Wait, a couple more coaches.
Okay,
Rex
sorry.
Ryan's your second best.
Some
That
great
worked
times.
out great.
Some great
Then
times.
Foot fetish scandal, and then it just kind of went sideways. And
He saved his job with a win, the final game against Miami, brought back one more year after and then that year was like done.
went into Belichick's house and beat him and talked all kinds of shit.
No doubt.
That was a real thing.
Probably
But
the
he's never
greatest
coached
Jets
again,
moment.
right?
in
Coach
my adult
Buffalo
life.
afterwards.
That's right. Oh, yeah, he went to Buffalo. Todd Bowles went 10-6 in 2015.
Missed the playoffs with Ryan Fitzpatrick as quarterback, and they just missed the playoffs. Jets have been victims of this a few times. They were 11-5 the Castle year, where I think
No,
the
that
Dolphins,
was the Pats. Yeah, the Pats.
they
and
all
the
went
Jets,
11-5,
And
and then this year they went 10-6, and it's like they couldn't do anything in the postseason.
So he was 10-6 in 15, and then the wheels came off just for the Jets in general. You're like 43 and 93 cents, but he was 9-23. I remember in Jets Nation, and we knew each other by then. people felt like the team, he wasn't that bad. It was just the quarterback situation was such a disaster.
The GM McCagnon was like the great ire. Everyone had they both lost their jobs.
The Jets fans weren't like, God, get this guy out of here, though. Were they? I don't remember that.
I think by the end they were, but that first season was the year when Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker were on the outside as their receivers, and they were incredible. That was awesome. The most exciting offensive team.
They had an overtime win over the Patriots where Decker has a touchdown and Fitzpatrick hits him, and it was like, all right, like this could work.
Then Adam Gase, who I don't even think is coaching anymore, right?
Gase was...
I think he went to go coach high school.
And living down in Alabama for a while. I'm not sure what he's up to now.
He's on the 33rd team. He's like an advisor.
He's like consulting? Yeah.
He's not even coaching high school?
He was making money from both the Dolphins and the Jets for many, many years. I think those contracts have probably expired. But at one point, he was double dipping with both teams, having been fired by both teams with years left on both contracts.
And he's the worst of all of these coaches, right? Have you had a worse coach than Adam Gase?
He was wildly inept, but he also was at a time when those rosters were really bad too. And that was the tail end of the McCagnon era. It was right before Joe Douglas came in for his last season. Have we even said the name Joe Douglas to this point? Who's been there for 4 years. Contract.
Yeah.
Wow. And if you look at his record is actually a lot worse than Robert Saleh's, though he did inherit an absolute disaster in that first Gase season. But it just honestly, I'm not passing judgment. It just seemed like there was something wrong with Adam Gase. Like it was impossible to tell what convinced Christopher Johnson to hire him in the first place. Because he was, had that famous press conference where he just seemed like loopy, and he was a disaster from the very beginning.
And then Saleh, and then Ulbrich.
The Saleh one is interesting because of that year and the way the coaches were all being interviewed. And I remember talking to you, and I believe it was House at the time, and you guys were all like, Saleh to Detroit, right? And I remember saying, like, maybe he's a local guy there, but I know he's going to have other opportunities. And they hired Dan Campbell even before that. And everyone's like, Dan Campbell. And the irony is, here's Dan Campbell. Of all that crew, I wish we had the whole list, but I think it was like Mike McDaniel, Robert Saleh, and then I remember Kingsbury interviewed with the Jets, but Michael Bidwell had a plane waiting for him out there right afterwards. And it was like, if he gets on that plane, he's going to Arizona. And Cliff went and took the Arizona job and had to get out of USC. But like, that was a crazy year of, who's going where. And Saleh, I think a lot of Jets fans were happy with it. Here's a all business, tough-nosed defensive coach. And I think, 4 years later, it's over.
So top three. Top three Jets coaches. Parcells 1.
Yes, although honestly,
Rex Ryan's 2.
Rex got farther more consistently. I mean, Rex went to 2 consecutive AFC championship games.
And beat Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in playoff games.
Parcells changed the culture of the team.
Parcells went and got Curtis Martin from the Pats. Like the Jets were a laughing stock, and it felt like he fixed it.
Those Parcells teams were awesome. Like Richie Anderson,
they were good.
Keith Byers,
they definitely
Kevin
had
Mawae.
identity. Yeah, he had a lot of old school. So who's the third best Jets coach of your lifetime then?
This is sad. Is it Al Groh for 1 year?
He's the only one with a winning record, right? He went 9-7.
Al Groh, that name means nothing to any Jet fan. It's like 1 year.
Is he the only one with a winning record aside from Parcells and Rex?
Yeah.
So it's got to be Al Groh.
Can I ask you as a Jet fan, because already all my Jet fans are texting me, and it's like, do you want to go Vrabel Belichick style, or would you want young hotshot Ben Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury, or hotshot college coach? Like, where's your head now coming off the Saleh era?
Ridiculous.
Well, this is complete wish casting, but I saw somebody pitch the idea of Mike Vrabel as head coach and Kevin Stefanski getting fired and coming in as the OC. Now that
two-time coach of the year.
Yes, that is something I would love.
If Stefanski was available, I would put him on the Vrabel level.
Yeah, Stefanski's great.
By the way, the Stefanski thing, we're going to talk about it after Sean leaves, but it's a little similar to Saleh with Zach Wilson last year, where
you're playing the guy.
You're playing the guy that they told you to play. Yeah. Like he clearly didn't have a choice. He didn't want to keep playing Zach Wilson.
I'm a big Kevin Stefanski fan as far as knowing how he operates in that building and how the players respond and what he did in Minnesota. And he's a 2-time coach of the year. I'd be shocked if they fired him at the end of this season.